You know, when we think of caregivers, nurses, mothers, grandmothers, we think of safety, right? Comfort. But what happens when that trust is twisted? When it's betrayed in the most quiet and terrifying way imaginable? Today, we're diving into the really unsettling world of female poisoners, women who turn the act of nurturing into the act of murder.
And this is the core of it, this quote right here. It's from a doctor who treated one of Nanny Doss's victims. Speaking about the killer, he said, "She was just a real nice little old lady who played the role perfectly." I mean, that's just chilling, because it gets right to the heart of the paradox. This harmless, sweet-looking person on the outside was hiding a monster.
So how do they do it? Let's talk about their weapon of choice, because there's a reason poison is so often the signature weapon of the female serial killer. There's a huge difference in methods. Male serial killers often use direct, physical, violent confrontation, but female poisoners, they operate in the shadows. Their method is quiet, it's secretive, and it's intimate. It doesn't require any physical strength, which means they can kill without ever getting into a physical fight.
And get this, the numbers are pretty staggering. Women are 5 times more likely than men to use poison as their murder weapon. This isn't just some movie trope, it's a cold, hard statistical fact. So what is it about this weapon that's so appealing? Well, it really comes down to the poison itself. First, it's convenient and, a lot of the time, really easy to get your hands on. We're talking about things like rat poison. Second, it's secretive, which makes it incredibly hard to trace, especially before modern forensics came along. It's totally non-confrontational. And maybe most importantly, it allows the killer to go after victims who are already helpless and in their care, like kids, the elderly, or the sick.
For centuries, the go-to tool was arsenic. It's a natural mineral, and here's the scary part. It's tasteless and odorless, perfect for slipping into a cup of tea. It was so common back in the day for getting rid of rich relatives, it actually got the nickname inheritance powder. What it does to the body is just devastating. It basically shuts down your cell's energy factories, causing the slow, agonizing system failure. Of course, today, things have changed. Modern forensics can spot even a tiny trace of this stuff, making it a whole lot harder to get away with now.
Okay, so we understand the weapon, but how on earth did they get away with it for so long? Well, that brings us to our next section, hiding in plain sight. This is all about how they use gender and their jobs as the perfect disguise.
Just look at Nanny Doss. They called her the giggling granny. I mean, who would ever suspect a cheerful old grandmother? But behind that smile, she was systematically poisoning people. 4 of her husbands, her own mother, 2 sisters, and even 2 of her own children. Her public persona was the ultimate camouflage.
Or how about Mary Ann Cotton from Victorian England? She played the part of a caring nurse to gain everyone's trust. But the reality? She poisoned as many as 21 people, including, unbelievably, 12 of her own kids, all for a little bit of insurance money. She completely weaponized the trust people put in her as a professional.
And don't think this is just some old-timey thing. Fast forward to the 1990s, and you have Kristen Gilbert. She was a nurse at a VA hospital who looked like your typical blonde 30-year-old soccer mom. She used her medical knowledge to give her patients drugs that caused heart attacks, not for money, but for attention, so she could be the hero who rushed in to save them.
So you're probably wondering, how did they kill so many people over so many years without getting caught? A huge part of it was something called linkage blindness. Basically, by moving from town to town or state to state, the authorities in each new place wouldn't connect the dots. To the local police, another death just looked like a tragic, one-off event, not part of a serial killer's pattern.
Okay, so we've seen the who and the how, but that leaves the biggest, most disturbing question of all. Why? Now we're going to look inside the poisoned mind and try to unpack the psychological journey that takes someone from fantasy to the horrifying reality of murder. Criminal profilers have actually found a pretty common pathway here. It almost always starts with a troubled, abusive childhood where they felt powerless and never really formed healthy emotional bonds. So to cope, they retreat into their own head, building this incredible fantasy world of a perfect life, finding Prince Charming, having the perfect family. But real life, well, it can never match the fantasy. And when the husband or the kids or the job don't fit into that perfect picture, that fantasy world turns dark. The daydreams stop being about escape and start being about power and control. And then comes the final, terrifying step. They decide to make that dark fantasy a reality by eliminating the person who's in their way. When you boil it down, their motivations usually fall into one of 3 buckets. For about 35%, it's all about the money. That's your Mary Ann Cotton with her insurance scams.
For another 30%, it's about escape or control. That's Nanny Doss, getting rid of husbands who didn't live up to her romantic fantasies. And for 25%, it's just pure attention and ego. And that was the twisted force driving Kristen Gilbert.
Yeah, that need for attention can turn into something really specific and disturbing. Munchausen syndrome by proxy. This is where a caregiver, usually a mother or a nurse, secretly makes someone they're supposed to be caring for sick. And why would they do that? To get praise and attention for being the heroic, selfless person who's nursing them back to health, or in Kristen Gilbert's case, creating a crisis that only she could solve.
So we know these women are out there, hiding behind these masks of normalcy. But this leads to a final, really unsettling question. How many more are there? Are the killers we know about just the ones who weren't good enough to get away with it?
I mean, if you look at the official conviction stats for serial killers, it seems pretty black and white. Men make up a whopping 85% of those convicted. Women? Only 15%. So on the surface, you think, okay, this is mostly a male problem.
But hold on. Does that number really mean that women commit way fewer serial murders? Or could it mean something else entirely? Could it mean they're just much, much better at not getting caught?
Criminal profiler Dr. Deborah Sherman Coughlin has a really different take. She says, and I quote, "Just because the incarceration figures are only 15% doesn't mean that women aren't killing more. It just means they're better at what they do." And that's a chilling thought to end on, isn't it? The possibility that the most successful serial killers might not be the ones we know about at all, but the quiet, unassuming women who never even become a suspect.